Alright guys, MTech Guy here, and today we're going to be discussing the most efficient service intervals for your BMW E60 M5. Now I know there's a lot of you guys out there that like getting stuck in and working on your cars yourselves, and that's a great attitude to go into the ownership of these cars, but something that I do get asked about quite frequently is the service intervals for these cars, you know, fluids, filters and whatnot. Now it is a fair question because there isn't that much information out there on this, and there's certainly no Haynes manuals or Bentley manuals that cover these M cars, the M5s. Now there is some BMW literature out there on this, but it is pretty light on information. It pretty much just talks about oil change, gearbox oil, differential oil, and then your cabin filter and your air filters, and it pretty much just tells you to change your oil every 15,000 miles, and then your gearbox oil differential, I think it's every third oil change, and the filters are pretty spaced apart as well. It seems a bit too spaced out for a car like this. Now of course BMW are primarily in the business to manufacture cars and sell cars, so obviously during the era that these cars were built they were very much pushing the idea that the service costs didn't have to be too much for you. It wasn't going to be this ongoing burden, so they really stretched out them service intervals, and to be fair, nowadays you've got these synthetic fluids and you can get away with it up to a certain extent, but they probably pushed it a bit too far, especially with the M cars, because you got a lot of power going through that drivetrain. High performance engines is putting so much more strain on them fluids, so I think you're far better off being a bit more cautious with these cars more than anything else. Now on the other end of the spectrum, there is the argument out there on approaching the service with these cars with an old school mentality, you know, 3,000 mile oil changes, 2-year coolant changes and whatnot. But to be fair, you're probably swinging too far the other way now, because you know, we're not looking at a old 70s Chevy here. Fluids have come a hell of a long way since then. You've got these awesome synthetic fluids and oils and whatnot, so I believe you've got to approach the servicing of these cars somewhere in between the two. So you've got to take into account the weight of the car, the age of the car, the way it's set up with the engine and the drivetrain and whatnot, and also the fluids that are available nowadays. So with that being said, the purpose of the video today is to take a look at them service intervals for your E60 M5. So what I'll do is I'll run through all the individual service items for the car, and this will be approaching it with the mentality of we're doing what's best for the longevity of the car without going overboard. And I see most of my viewers out there in North America and the UK, so what I'll do is I'll list all the intervals off in miles, but I will put the kilometre equivalent across the bottom of the screen there for you guys, the rest of the world. Alright, let's get into it. Okay, so we'll start with your engine oil. So you want to be looking at changing the engine oil and the filter out every 5,000 miles or 6 months, whichever comes first. Your SMG gear oil, you want to be looking at doing that every 30,000 miles, and the same with the differential fluid. Now some people might think that's a bit too often, but to be fair, you've got a lot of power going through that gearbox and that differential. And also what you've got to keep in mind is both your gearbox and your differential are vented to atmosphere. Now atmosphere contains moisture, so you can't go wrong with a 30,000 mile oil change for your gear oil and your differential. Your engine coolant, that's good for up to 4 years, so change that out every 4 years, especially if you're using the BMW stuff. It's good to go and it's cheap to use too. Alright, brake fluid, you want to look at changing that out every 2 years, regardless of the mileage, and you want to be giving it a full flush from the reservoir right the way through to all 4 calipers. Power steering fluid, you want to be looking at changing that every 2 years too. Now the cabin filters, everyone seems to approach them with pretty long intervals, but they do get dirty, then they do get damp, and it can have an effect on your HVAC system, your aircon and whatnot, so get them changed out either once a year or every 10,000 miles, and that's the same for your air filters as well, once a year or every 10,000 miles, because you know, what are you going to do, just let them get blocked up and change them 2 or 3 years down the line? You know, you want the best airflow for that engine. It is a pretty sensitive engine to that, so get them changed out every 10,000 or every once a year. That S85 will be running at full efficiency. Now your fuel filter, which sits under the back seat there, you want to get that changed out every 60,000 miles. Keep your whole fuel system in good health, especially them injectors. And with the fuel injectors, what I like to do to keep them in good health is put some fuel injection cleaner through the petrol tank once every 6 years, or before every oil change, whichever comes first. Okay, spark plugs. If you're using the OEM NGK Iridium type, you'll be good for 60,000 miles. Unless you're experiencing issues, then change them out sooner, but otherwise you're good for 60,000 miles. Now your air conditioning system, what I like to do is get the whole system serviced every 2 years. Now you want to avoid using one of them Mickey Mouse little recharge canisters with the hose you get from your favourite parts store. Now, you know, they're fine for a quick top up now and again, but every 2 years you want to be giving it a proper service with someone who's got the proper equipment. Now I've owned my E46 coupe, about 9 years now, and I've been getting the aircon serviced every couple of years, and the car's nearly 20 years old, and the aircon runs super efficient, super cold, so it's a no-brainer. It's done the system good and kept it in good shape. Now then, with your battery, I normally find these last at least 4 years or so, unless I buy a BMW one, and then they seem to last 7 years. But regardless of that, I like to change mine out every 4 years, regardless of its condition, because then I'm changing it out on my terms, rather than on the side of the road away from home. You broke down, you can't start your car, and then you're looking for a battery when it's not the most convenient time. So I like to go out and choose a battery of my liking, change it in my driveway on my terms, so I look at getting that done every 4 years. Now, another thing that I like to do, not just with this car, but any car that I own, once a year, is just go through the whole car and give it a good visual inspection, you know? So checking things like your suspension components, shocks and bushes for condition, wear and tear, check your brakes for condition and wear, that's your pads, your discs, the brake hoses and the hard lines for corrosion under the car. Have a good look under your hood there for the condition of your hoses, check for any leaks and whatnot, also your drive belts for condition and wear. And you know, most of the visual inspection might be covered under a statutory annual inspection that you have wherever you live. You know, we have a warrant of fitness here in New Zealand. Now in the UK you guys have got the MOT, and then some states over in America, I know you have an annual inspection here and there, so most of that, your brakes and suspension and whatnot, that's going to be covered under that. But to be fair, it's good just to go through the whole car and have a good look yourself, and then you've got a good idea what to deal with straight away, or what you might have coming up in the near future. Alright guys, so there we have it. So if you follow them guidelines, you're going to be keeping your car in good health without spending too much money unnecessarily. Now I do have some other videos on my channel where I do speak about the specifics of what fluids to use with these cars, and what I'll do is I'll link them at the end of this video. Alright, I hope this video helps you guys out. I'm MTech Guy. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.